Hi guys, I'm back. You know, today I just wish I could serenade a song for you all. Yes, I mean there's so much of silence around, perhaps uneasy, but still silence. And uh, but then I'll take a lot of time for me to get my whole guitar down, clean it up, and start strumming something for you all. Yeah, you asking me why music? I say, why not? Do we have a specific day, time, or place for music? No. It reminds me of this super character that I love from literature, Willy Wonka. You want to hear what he says? Listen to this. Mm, yeah. So you got it? Willy Wonka in the chocolate factory. And what did he say? We are music makers and dreamers of dreams. Does that line ring a bell? Does it? I repeat, we are the music makers and we are the dreamers of dreams. Yes? I refer to the poet Arthur O'Shaughnessy. He was born in London around 1844. Then grew up to work in a British Museum in the Natural History department. I was reading a bit about him, and then I found out that in his spare time, he wrote a lot of poetry, very much like some of my favorite poets, Wordsworth, Keats. And what did they specialize in? They specialized in turning away from the materialism of that period that they were in and focus on the nature of beauty, particularly in art, in all kinds of creative pursuits. But O'Shaughnessy differed from them slightly. Unlike the Romantics, who sought to divorce themselves from the world, he desired to be a part of this very world and to serve some purpose. He didn't want to move away from this world. Quite a deja vu moment, you know? Why? Because, come to think of it, it is quite striking that I took up O'Shaughnessy right after Robert Frost. Remember? Earth's the right place for love. I don't know where it's likely to get better. Yes. We cannot move away from the only tangible reality that is there around us, this world, our earth. And that is what O'Shaughnessy believed in. Yes, yes. So perhaps, this bonding of this irrevocable truth about these two poets, each of them stating it in their inimitable fashion, we find that similarity. So O'Shaughnessy did not wish to alienate himself from the society, though he was quite a loner himself. Uh, Probably here we might accept that this is what made him different from the others of the same genre. Yes, probably, yes. You know, uh, I was reading a lot about the poet, and there was a little anecdote that I came across uh, about him. It just came back to me. He was very close to the poet Rossetti, Dante, Dante Gabriel Rossetti. Uh, but even his closest friend wrote a cruel limerick mocking Arthur's aspirations to become a great poet. See, remember, Arthur O'Shaughnessy does not fall into the first list of poets that we would generally recommend to a reader. Yes. And his own friend, his best friend, wrote this limerick. And the limerick goes like this: There is the Irishman, Arthur O'Shaughnessy, on the chessboard of poets, a pawn is he. Though a bishop or king would be rather the thing to the fancy of Arthur O'Shaughnessy. Cruel, yeah, but like I said, it's a reality. He doesn't fall into the category of the first lot of poets that we talk about. And his best friend makes a mockery of his dreams. Yet, no one can take away the credit of the most memorable line that we oft quote. More than one memorable line. The first one being, we are the music makers, and we are the dreamer of dreams. And of course, another one is, we are the movers and shakers. Movers and shakers, by itself, a lot of meaning. Yes. He had a sad life, a soft hearted poet, died very young at the age of 36, leaving behind this ode for us, which was in the collection of Music and Moonlight, published in 1874. Uh, uh, this is a ode that is not for only poets and musicians, but one that any creative person can identify with. So it's any work of any person of any creative interest is addressed here. You know, the original ode, remember guys, is 9 stanzas. But Palgrave Golden Treasury of Poems, immediately after the poet's death, reduced it to 3 stanzas, and that is what we are going to work with today as a part of your curriculum. So, like I always do, I would ask you to take the poem, take a pencil, and please number the lines. You see, it's very simple. There are 8 lines, 3 stanzas, 24 lines in total. So you have 8, 16, 24. Yeah. Got it? Numbered? Super. Let's then move to the first stanza. We are the music makers, and we are the dreamers of dreams, wandering by lone sea breakers and sitting by desolate streams, world losers and world forsakers, upon whom the pale moon gleams. Yet we are the movers and shakers of the world forever, it seems. Yeah. It is in the very first stanza that the poem's power truly lies. You know, the musicality and the felicity of words, it's so pleasing to the ear. Very easy to remember. Simple construction and a simple rhyme scheme. Just look at it. It's a very simple rhyme scheme. You have the A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B formation. Makers, breakers, forsakers, shakers, and dreams, streams, gleams, seams. Very simple. Simple construction, simple rhyme scheme. Yes. But, like I said, the poem's power lies here. Because it's in the first 8 lines of the poem. They're all centered on very declarative statements. They're defining what artists are. Yes. Very clear. Music makers, dreamers of dreams, world losers, world forsakers. They're movers and shakers. Yes. And the verbs that are rather weak. You have the verbs like wandering and sitting, which sort of adds on perhaps to the overall picture of the artist. Yes. Right. In the second stanza, when we move, you'll find that the poet shifts his focus to action. Yes. Right? Of course, it begins in the very first stanza as movers and shakers. So if you look at the poem, we are the music makers. The first person plural with which the poem begins. We. That bold assertion of the role of creative artists is what we make music. Music here just does not mean a song. We make something which appeals to whoever hears, sees, or experiences it. And there's another assertion. It's a role of dreamers of dreams. We are the ones who perhaps dream of a new world. We envision something that does not exist. We help people to realize some new realizations, if I may use that word again. Help people to bring to life some of the thoughts lying dormant. We transform dreams into reality. We, here, the poet says, are the creative artists. But he says there's some oddity in it, because he said, what is the oddity here? They haunt lone sea breakers and desolate streams. Yes, and also being the non-conformist, they are the world losers and the world forsakers. You know, they are the compound words here: world losers, world forsakers. The poets and artists have another role to play in this world. Yes, uh, and this role is what helps perhaps in framing or designing a new world for the ordinary mortals like you and me. You know, I feel it's only natural that this tribute to the dreamer of dreams should begin with the sonorous alliteration: music makers and dreamers of dreams. You know, this lovely alliterative line here. Okay, now let's move to where do we see these poets and dreamers? Where are they seen? They're not in busy thoroughfares in the cities, in busy towns moving about. No, they are seen in lonely, desolate places. Yes? And what does this reflect? It's not only reflective of the solitude one requires to work with his or her art, but also each individual's challenge to the existing status quo, whereby he or she rejects the existing order around. No, this is not the world for me. I'm going to dream of a new world. I'm going to move you away. I'm going to take you away. But before that, I need to dream of that new world. And where will I get it? I'll get it when I move out of this, step out of this existing system and start dreaming of a new world. And that's why we move to lonely, isolated places where there is silence and the pleasure of being with only one company. And what is the company? One's own thoughts. That is the company that they seek. We move to upon whom they are world losers and world forsakers, because since they have moved away from our world, they are condemned. They are people who have not been able to adjust to the challenges of what our day-to-day living has forced on them. Little do we understand that they do it by choice. It's very easy for us to call them that, but they do it by choice because they want to create a new world for which they want the privacy of their own selves, right? And like any poet, why any poet? My first thought goes to Shakespeare, you know, and in Othello, I remember it's this line. He says that it is the very error of the moon. She comes more near the earth than she was wont and makes men mad. Making men mad. You know. And here you have the pale moon gleams. Why have I brought this thought? Because the Roman goddess of moon was Luna, Luna, prefix of the word lunatic. And it is believed that the effect of the full moon, as it's depicted in literature, movies, and even Aristotle, he suggested that the brain, the human brain, is believed to be the moistest organ, and hence it is affected by the moon. Like the moon affects the tides, the water, probably the brain. And because of that, sorry, as non believers like many of you out there, this argument may not hold water, pun intended, but poets do reflect upon this thought. And they're perceived, and hence these artistic people of this artistic temperament are perceived as mad. They're crazy. They're solitary. They are nomadic. They move about in isolation. They appear to be rudderless. They're oblivious of what is required to survive. But what we don't see is it is their choice. They are happy to be in the world of their own thoughts. Yes. So it is not a wonder that the poet writes, these are the people upon whom the pale moon gleams. They are mad. They're different from the rest of the world. The fact that they haunt the odd corners of the society under the light of the pale moon makes them different. A lonely artist. And what is he doing? He is wandering aimlessly, resting beside. See the adjectives used to heighten the loneliness: desolate, deserted, remote, isolated, unknown streams. But that is the atmosphere they are seeking for themselves to, because they want to dream those elusive dreams and transform them into a reality for you and me. That's the first stanza. We move on to the second. With wonderful deathless ditties, we build up the world's great cities, and out of a fabulous story we fashion an empire's glory. One man with a dream at pleasure shall go forth and conquer a crown, and three with a new song's measure can trample an empire down. Now you see, you check the rhyme scheme, there is a change here. You have two couplets. So you have C, 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 D, D, and then you have E, F, E, F. So you have the couplets here, ditties, cities, then you have story, glory, then you have E, F, E, F, because pleasure and measure, crown and down. Yes? And there is a change from the first stanza. In the first stanza, we had, of course, if you notice the first stanza, you had quite a few prepositions and conjunctions beginning the sentences. And they were softer. Yes, they were softer. The verbs were also very soft, mild, wandering city. But in the second stanza, the verbs are strong. We have stronger words. And we have perhaps that the action is now coming on. And that is what the poet talks about. Harsh, action packed. Because remember, when we ended the first stanza, we ended with, we are the movers and shakers of the world forever, it seems. So, our job as artists is to cause that upheaval, is to cause that revolution, to fashion new lives, to fashion new thoughts in this world of ours. Yes. So the verbs in this stanza are all strong and active. You have build, you have fashion, you have conquer, you have trample. Verbs neatly linked with the accompanying nouns of songs and stories. And what are they demonstrating? They are demonstrating that dreaming and working are not divided, they are inherently linked. They are not dreams that die and remain dreams forever. The dreams are those that are translated into something that is a reality. So, dreaming and working are inherently linked. So, so what is happening here that is different from the first stanza? The first is a romantic conception of what artists are and what they can do and what they can achieve. You know, the romantic notion of dreamers and music makers, wandering souls, right? The image that you get of the artist. But in the second stanza, the poet is moving from this entire creative romantic notion of a poet as an inspired genius to a discussion of what poets can do that will impact lives and the world around, perhaps forever. That is important. So the shift is from, if I may use some isms, it's a shift from romanticism to realism, socialism, no vague concept of power of art and artists, but the actual reformation of society, a change. Yes. And actually, stanza 2 and 3, they celebrate the power of the artists. But unlike in the first, where power is more the creative, here it is a destructive power because we are talking of conquering kings, trampling kingdoms, and overthrowing past civilizations. But remember, under overt, uh, this overt or apparent picture of destruction and conquering and trampling lies regeneration of life. And that life, which perhaps for you and me would have remained a dream unless it was for these creative artists to transform into reality. So, in the second stanza, excuse me, there is an emphasis on a very important aspect of an artist's thought, that is the timelessness of art. The art that these music makers create is a reality which lives beyond the age that they are created in. Arthur William Edgar O'Shaughnessy died years ago at the age of 36, and we here in 2020 we are reliving his thoughts. Is there any greater proof than this? So, their art, whatever the artist creates, it's timeless, it is immortal. And this is made clear, by stating how the deathless deities, that is, the timeless songs as given in the first line of the second stanzas, about the ancient cities outlive the actual cities which provide the subject for the song. Right? Very simple. Think about Troy, Homer's creation, or Kurukshetra, Vedvyas in Mahabharata, the lost city of Atlantis written by Plato in as early as 359 BC, where divine punishment beset by earths and floods and it sank into the muddy sea. Atlantis was lost. Troy was destroyed. Kurukshetra, where families came face to face with each other and there was this mighty war and destruction. Yes. The cities are lost, but have we forgotten about the Trojan horse and the destruction of Troy? Have we forgotten about Helen, Paris, Hector, Achilles? We haven't, right? Have we forgotten about the Chakravyuh that was designed to kill Abhimanyu, for he was too adept an archer? No. As poems and epics and movies escape destruction, they are privileged. Artists are privileged, unlike their real physical counterparts, because whatever they create is timeless. The dreamers of dreams have kept them alive for us forever. And that is the focus in this stanza. Now, there is the subversive nature of art, which is also dealt with in the second part of this stanza. And this states that a man may conquer through his ambition. Yes, he may conquer a lot through his ambition, but his greed for power, he may conquer a lot. His thirst for more, he may conquer a lot. But all it takes for the creative artist is a simple note of a song, a simple stroke of the brush, or a single line of poetry to bring down empires. Interesting, yes? No wonder, no wonder art is one of the first elements to be censored when repressive regimes come to power. Why? Because whatever they write, whatever they draw, whatever they sing, whatever they create, is reflecting the truth, and that will be a truth that will haunt our memories forever. So, repressive regimes have always tried to throttle the power of creative artists. Nadine Gordimer, South African songwriter, wrote on subjects like anti-apartheid politics and was banned and condemned in her home country. She went on to win the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1991. Salman Rushdie, censored for his satanic verses. Taslima Nasreen's book Lajja, banned. She was forced to leave her motherland, came and took refuge in India. Yes. Bob Dylan was banned for playing music in China for a long time. Why? Because he spoke of individual freedom and revolution. So, why does this happen? We only have to consider that the subversive role of various artists throughout history and how governments did all they could to suppress their art, but to no avail. Artists and their art have always troubled insecure rulers, have always troubled dictatorial regimes, because whatever they write, whatever they draw, whatever they enunciate, have outlasted and will outlast all the regimes. Their work, their creations will receive the adulation, will go unscathed, because we, you and me, will understand the reality of what they have created. Yes. So, one man with a dream at pleasure shall go forth and conquer a crown. Single note, nations will be toppled. Yes. With a single song, empires can come down. And that's why we cannot shut them down. Their creation is absolutely immortal. Yes. It actually uh, takes me back to what Keats wrote in the Ode on the Grecian urn. Everything there, whatever is drawn on the urn, remains a moment etched in time. He draws two young people, two lovers on the urn. He said these lovers in reality may grow old and die, but the way I have described them on the Grecian urn will keep them young and eternal for generations to come. That is the timelessness of art and also the subversive nature of art. I will read the third stanza just for the completion. We in the ages, lying in the buried past of the earth, built Nineveh with our sighing and Babel itself with our mirth, and overthrew them with prophesying to the old of the new world's worth. For each age is a dream that is dying, or one that is coming to birth. Again, here in this third and the final stanza, we go back to this very simple rhyme scheme of G H G H G H G H, very similar to the first stanza. Lying, sighing, prophesying, and dying, earth, mirth, worth, and birth. So, in the final stanza, probably, especially if you read the last two lines, for each age is a dream that is dying, or one that is coming to birth. It introduces perhaps the message for the rest of the poem. And this is a message that we shall take up when we have our next lesson a day from today. So, what I would like you to do, guys, is go through. It is quite a heavy poem, a lot of uh, very insightful thoughts, very personal, yet which is universal in numerous aspects. So I would like you to pen down your points from the what you've understood from the first two stanzas before we move on to the third and final stanza and draw a closure to We Are the Music Makers by Arthur William Edgar O. Shaughnessy. So, goodbye for today. I shall see you very soon. Bye for now.